Hi everyone, it's DM Captain Obvious, and I'm about to be putting out a 20+2 Seek on LeechS.org, open to all ratings. Let's see what we get. Hopefully we get someone above 1800. I'm not going to complain if we don't, but hey, ask and look at that. We get a Dutch on board. It's kind of a Armenian-looking name. ArtemDyachuk. We'll just play classical Dutch. And he seems to know his theory, which you would expect. 2000 is a very good rating for this time control. Given that... Ooh, wait, did I? Nah, it's fine. And then c5. Whoa! Bishop a3. That I'm not familiar with. So we're going to take a moment here. Everything up to now has been pretty much mainline theory for a classical Dutch. Just get the king to safety. And of course, we're going to the opposing bishops for attacking chances. I didn't want to spend too long on just the opening phase. We can go back during the post game and look at those moves and talk a little bit about it. But this is the first moment where I feel like I should think if I want to take, or initially after something like bishop b2, c5 is very common. Sometimes knight a6, knight c7, or knight a6, and the knight takes on c5 if trading. White wants to play d5 in a lot of situations in those setups, but bishop a3 is definitely a little bit... It's not bad at all, but it is certainly out of my own personal book knowledge. So c5 doesn't seem right now. Pawn takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. Actually, that's maybe not so terrible. It's something I should actually consider still c5. White should be happy they have the center, their king is safe, but of course I am also happy. I think my attack is going to come faster, but I don't want to trade all my minor pieces off too quickly. c5, bishop takes bishop. I could also just ignore it. Bishop takes, if he plays bishop takes bishop, I of course just recapture with the queen. I might have knight c6, d5, or a5 here as well. So by no means do I have to respond to bishop a3. And I actually kind of like knight c6 because d5 is not really a threat there. I would be okay with capturing. Because his knight. So if I do play knight c6 and then he can't develop his knight yet, given that it has a responsibility here. So I think we're actually going to do this, and I imagine he wants to trade the dark square bishops in that position. And we'll recapture with the queen and leave our knight where on a good spot. But this is interesting. I'd like to look at this one a little bit more. This bishop a3. It doesn't force my hand in any way, and maybe I will regret playing knight c6 and not being able to play c5. So he doesn't trade the bishops. He instead elects to sink his knight into the very good e5 square. But I'm going to go ahead and say that doesn't really change the balance too much. I want to prevent him from playing d5. We'll still recapture with the queen. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Okay. Our opponent is moving quickly. He is experienced in the Dutch. Unfortunately, this move drops a pawn. I don't fully see if I'm... Anyway, I'm going to regret just taking that pawn. We'll still keep queen takes bishop. He wanted to develop his knight. So, ugh, that's not a mouse slip. And I understand takebacks are fine for positions where you get a very clear mouse slip, but that was very intentional, I want to say. He was defending his bishop with hopes of developing this knight. He wanted to maintain tension. He didn't want to trade. So this was not a mouse. Oh, and he resigns. Okay. Well, we can still take a look at this. And specifically, let's go ahead and look at this as kind of a review on the Dutch. That's a very preemptive resignation. It's not a pleasant position. Obviously, this being a huge threat, and then everything is just kind of bad. But still, that's too bad. Okay, well, score 1 for the Dutch. Another one for the Dutch. I do love this opening. But let's go ahead and take a look here and just kind of try to understand what's happening since I played the opening sequence very quickly. This is probably the most common way the Dutch is met, transposing with c4, f5, and then 2d4. This happens all the time. This was a topical position some time ago, at least where I was in the early 2000s, mid-2000s. Spent a lot of time looking at this here. We see already after g3 that there's not as many top-level games, super GM level, in this line. You're going to see white maintaining an edge in a lot of the variations. But one thing that is very nice is that the drawing chances are generally lower. Black has more prospects for an imbalanced game. So if you are trying to score with black, the Dutch is a very good tool to have against 1d4. I like the Dutch even more against the English, against c4. So in this position, I think this is my favorite way to start. And even though it generally transposes here, it doesn't always. English players don't necessarily want to play d4. And I have found in a lot of games where white plays d3, I get very pleasant advantages with black. So I would say I actually like the Dutch even more against the English. But we had a very regular position here. Normally setups are like knight c3, e3. Let's look at it from the white perspective. So generally something would go, a Dutch game would go something like this. And then of course if you check, you just block. This is also fine. Also common, just bishop here. And then this is a pleasant situation. We each can castle. And this is a very known position as well. But our opponent elected for g3. And again, bishop e2, bishop b4, these are both very fine moves. It's just a matter of personal preference, really. I've played c6 and then d5 setups, but I actually am not a tremendous fan. We see here that white, of course, scores very well, but as I said, the Dutch is very double-edged. If you know what you're doing, you're going to find that this is not completely accurate, especially at lower levels of play. The Dutch is a great way to score some wins. In any case, this is a sideline that I have been a huge fan of. I was momentarily worried that he might have some kind of knight move, but I can always meet it with several different ways if he wanted to try to open up this diagonal. So I don't think that there was anything I particularly have to fear here. Interestingly, d5 is the move that I was most worried about. I have looked at this. This move can be very frustrating for Dutch players in this classical setup. Establishing a pawn on d5 before I can establish a pawn on d5. And it really cramps things, and of course if you take, you can start to weaken the light squares coming towards the king. So this is a very relevant idea in a lot of classical Dutch setups. But I'm a fan of b6. It's not something that as many players seem to know about. Um, Most are used to d6 and playing for e5 in some way. So you can catch people a little out of their own preparation with b6, which is something that I've enjoyed. And we're still following the game. How about that? 1995. How about that? Yeah, this, as I said, I'm not surprised to see that this is where we're finally out of book completely between master games. This is not a move I've ever really seen before. Hey, Hugh Yifan, I think I remember that game. Yeah, not too long ago, so it's not a great feat of memory. But, Bishop a3. So this doesn't really necessarily belong here. I'm not sure I don't think it's a bad move by any means. d5, a5, knight c6, they're all options, as is bishop takes. Even knight e4 is a potential move. Knight e4, looking for a cheap blunder, the kind of thing, probably not in a slow game against a 2,000 rated opponent, but in a blitz or bullet game, you could absolutely see someone just forget that the knight is supposed to guard the bishop, challenge the knight, and then just drop a piece. You see that kind of stuff all the time at short time controls. But I would expect bishop takes, queen takes. It's kind of what I expected after knight c6. Knight c6, maybe even here, white should try to think about how he can take and try to play d5 somehow. Maybe move this guy first. But once knight e5 is played and I get to play d5, now I really don't have any problems in this position that I'm worried about. d5 is the only move that really cramps me in these Dutches that I worry about once we reach these sorts of middle positions. And of course here he just drops a pawn and resigns, which is unfortunate. Was looking forward to having a longer game than 11 moves. I think that was a bit preemptive. He is, of course, much worse, but I am human. I make mistakes, and maybe he finds a way to trick me in some position. Not surprising. The computer thinks white maintains its advantage, which is fine. Yeah, just kind of marred by this blunder here. It's registered as a mistake, but it's pretty bad. and it's not a mouse slip. I'm not there. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe he was trying to pick up the queen and drop it. It didn't feel like a mouse slip. Frankly, I think he was just trying to reinforce the bishop and move the knight in regards to the take back. But yeah, this is just pretty clean from this point. Yeah, there's just a lot of ways to proceed here. Okay, well, a short video. A little bit of a seminar on the Dutch. Not going to go into a tremendous amount of prep. I've got a study up on Lichess. If you want to learn about the Dutch, you can, of course, go to my profile, click Studies, and then the Dutch and anti-Dutch systems. It's just a starter, just to get you familiar with some of the basic tenets of the Dutch defense. Yeah, so I hope you still took something from the video, and I hope you enjoy whatever chess you're playing now and in the future. Take care and have a great day. Bye.